What is up, guys? Welcome to my shop. Today I'm going to be showing you how to turn a wooden ring. We're going to be using these metal ring cores with a channel in the middle. Now, real quick, something about these ring cores. There are different types. The type I'm going to be turning is a solid core, so it's all one piece. A lot of them come with, let me see how I do this. A lot of them come where the two pieces are separate, and so when you turn it, you just slide it over the center channel and then you snap the other piece in, or some of them are threaded. So you would thread the other piece on, and it's really easy to do. With these solid pieces, there's no seam in the middle, which is supposedly more comfortable. But it adds in the added challenge of how do you get a solid piece of wood into a channel when the two pieces don't come apart. It's just one piece. So what we're going to be doing today is kind of going over the steps of how you do this from start to finish. We're going to be using a piece of canary wood. And this is pretty cool wood. It's got some really cool patterns and stuff in it. It's got a pretty yellow color to it. So we're going to be using that today. I've already got some smaller blanks cut out of it, so I'm going to get these prepped up and ready to get on the lathe. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that one side of this is perfectly flat, because we're going to need at least one perfectly flat reference face, and then we want the other side to be perfectly parallel to that, so that when we go to put it in our ring, we don't have any gaps or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and get that process started. Next step that I'm going to take, now that I went ahead off camera and got my one side of my blank perfectly flat on the joiner, and then I cut it down just into a square shape. I needed it to be square for this next step. This is a little bit oversized from what I would actually need, but since I'm doing this method with a 4-jaw chuck, I need it to be about this size so it'll fit in the chuck. And this step is a little unorthodox, but I don't have the right tape for the other method that I would prefer to do. So I'm going to do it this way. This will work just fine for now. So I'm going to get this seated firmly all the way flat against the back of my chuck. And I'm going to tighten that down. It doesn't need to be super tight. And then what I'm going to do is get a drill bit that is smaller than the inner diameter of the ring core that I'm going to use. Let me see here. So I just need a Forstner bit that will fit in there with some room, so that's too small. Let's go up a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty close. And then I have a way of getting right up to that diameter in the next step. I'm gonna pop in, this is called a Jacob's chuck. It's kind of like a drill chuck on like a drill press, but it doesn't have a key. Just tighten it like that, and that goes in the tailstock of the lathe, and then you can put drill bits into it. So instead of the drill bit turning, the piece of wood turns on the lathe, and then this will drill into it. And we're going to drill at a relatively slow speed, probably around like 400 RPM. I'm just going to drill a hole all the way through. Alright, so now that's pretty close, but it's not exactly where we want it. So the next thing we need to do is take our ring and some calipers, and we're going to find the inside diameter of our ring, because we need sorry, not that one. The inside diameter of the channel. We need to get that hole to be exactly that measurement. So it's looking like we're at 18.8 millimeters. So we'll lock that down there. And we can be a little bit bigger than that, because we're going to put glue in there or epoxy in there, so that'll fill up the space. But we don't want it to be smaller than that because it'll crack the wood when we go to put it on. So, in order to do this next step, I've got another specialized tool. This is called a boring head. And this also goes in the tailstock like the Jacobs chuck did, but it has these carbide cutters on the end there. And we can micro adjust this up to 1/1000th of an inch so that we can really dial in dial in the size of our hole. And this is going to be a patience game of just creeping up on the fit. So I'm just taking a small pass here. Before we go any farther, I'm just going to bring my calipers in here and check. Make sure we're not going too far. Yeah, so we got still maybe like 1/16 of an inch wiggle room. When you're making these cuts, you know, it looks like you're only taking off a little bit, but it's doubled because it's taking it off of both sides. So you take really minuscule cuts.
I'm going to speed things up a little bit here and just kind of save you from the screeching and screaming of this bit. It was kind of dull, but it got the job done. So we just did this back and forth a few times, slowly sneaking up on the sides of that diameter. Honestly, it probably should have gone a little bit wider than I did because you'll see later in the video, the fit was just still a little bit too tight, and that, you know, tightness is a little dangerous when you're trying to squeeze this wood around a ring. So I should have had a little bit more wiggle room, but I adjust it later and get it taken care of. Now, to make it easier to fit the ring into the chuck, I left it oversized, and it was pretty thick. I really only needed about 2 millimeters. So to get it down to thickness, I could have taken it to the bandsaw, but my bandsaw blade was broken. So for this, I just hot glued it to a piece of MDF, which was going to keep it really flat. Ran it through the drum sander a few times to get it close to that dimension. I was afraid of going too far, so I left it a little bit thick, which ended up resulting in a lot of hand sanding later. So next time I'll definitely take this down further with the drum sander, but you'll see how thin it is here in a second.
Just go take this old chisel, pop this glue off of here. Try and be gentle with it. All right, there we go. That is crazy thin. All right, let's see how close we are to fitting in that ring channel. All right, let's do a little quick test fit. Yeah, we are just, if you guys can see that, just a little too big. So I'm gonna go hit this with some sandpaper. I'll be right back. So we are really close there. It just barely, let me see, just barely fits in. Just barely fits in there. It's still too tight, but I don't want to go any further right now. I'm going to go on to the next step, and then after that step we can finesse the fit to make sure that it's going to be exactly what we're looking for. So the next step is actually the magic behind how this method works to make it look seamless. We're going to actually break this in half so that we can then fit the two halves around the core. And this wood's nice because it has a pretty open grain structure, so it'll hide the break really well to the point where you can't even see it. Like on this ring, you can't even see where the breaks were on this. It just like fits back together perfectly. But we have to make sure to break it pretty close to exactly in the center, because if we don't, then one side will have too tight of a radius and it won't actually fit around the ring, and it'll actually break it even more. So my grain's running, let's see, my grain is running this way. So I want to try and break it right across that line. So what I'm going to do is just draw a line for reference, roughly in the center there. Doesn't have to be exact, but you want it to be pretty close. All right, and then we're going to move over to the vise, and we're going to use the vise to help get as clean a break as possible. What we're going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to line up the edge of my vise with that line that I made. And this one's so thin that I can probably just do it by hand. Normally I would take a clamp or something to get like really firm pressure on this to help get a clean break, but this one's so thin that I'm just going to snap it off there. And then I want to keep the orientation the same so I can put it back together. Okay, so let's take a look here. So these two pieces go back together like this, and those break lines that just completely disappear. And especially with something this thin on the ends, you're never going to see that. So I'm just going to be sanding these at my bandsaw. The table's nice and flat, and I'm just going to do one piece at a time. I'm just going to keep checking the fit. We don't want it to be too loose, but if it's too tight, it'll break when it goes on. Because that radius, yeah, that is still hitting the edges of the channel there. So I'm gonna go with this for a little while, and I'll meet you on the other side. All right, so I'm just using this Gorilla Glue 5-minute epoxy. It's 2-part epoxy. Don't need a lot. Mix that up. Oh, it's starting to rain. And I'm going to use the tip of this pencil to try and put my epoxy in. We'll see how this works. I've never done this before. Ooh, that's too much. And let's put some on the wood itself as well. Let's go ahead and slide that on there. Spin that around a little bit. And let's see, is that the right way? Ooh, they're meeting up pretty nicely. All right, I'm gonna run over real quick before this sets up and get this in the clamp. I'll do that off camera, and then we'll just let it wait. So it's the next day. The epoxy's had time to cure up, and we should be good to go to trim this down and then get it on the lathe and start turning it down to its final shape. Go really easy with this one. Use this scraper here. So just using a carbide scraper, has a little carbide insert here. This one's round, so this is going to be a little bit smoother than any of the others. So we'll get this turning pretty fast. Make sure that it's turning true. All right, so get this up maybe close to 2,000 RPM. And we're just gonna take really light cuts here. Patience is the name of the game. It really sucks to have to start over at this point.
My goal here is just to bring the wood down to about level with the surface of the ring. I'm going to take really fine cuts here because if we get too big of a chunk, it could tear out the ring and we'd have to start all over.
Oh yeah, just about there. Now, we don't want to get it just flush with the ring. We actually need to go a little bit deeper because we want to build up a layer of finish that's going to bring it back level with the ring. So we'll have to get in there with a detail tool here in a second to just bring it so that I can catch my finger on the inside of that channel. But we still have a little ways to go yet on the outside. All right, let's see. Just clean it up a little bit. Just bring it down just below the surface. Don't have a lot of wood in that channel to work with, so just want to bring it down a smidge. Not quite there yet, almost. So run some 600 through there real quick just to make sure we're good. Alright, so I just got some mineral spirits on my rag here. Just going to kind of clean the ring out, make sure there's no dust sitting in there. This is going to be our first look at what the ring's going to look like as well with finish on it. Kind of makes that grain pop out. Really hard to see anything in this small of a ring. It's crazy. Alright, flip that on, let that dry for a second. So what we're going to be doing for a finish is just super glue. So this is pretty common wood turner's trick to use super glue as a finish for things that you want to have a high polish. So things like pins and rings, and it's really strong and durable, and it's pretty easy to apply as well. So we'll get a thin coat of that into the ring, let that soak in, harden, and then we'll build up coats until it's level with actually a little past the surface, and then we'll sand it back down so that it's level with the surface and polish that up to 12,000 grit and have this thing looking ready to go. Alright, got a couple of thin coats. Let's go with one more thick coat. Turn this down to size. So now we're going to wet sand from 1,500 up to 12,000. So we've got these little paper towel put down here. I've got these little polishing pads, and you just get them wet, and you just start sanding. Doesn't take long, you just need to have it up there long enough to build up a little bit of a slurry. That little gray schmutz on there. I'll wipe it down. Move on to the next one. The ring's looking good. Looks like we got all the scratches out of the metal. That's good. All right, so that's all the sanding pads. It's up to 12,000 grit. Then the last thing we're gonna do is a little polish. We got this stuff called Yorkshire grit. Let's see if I can get it in here. Yorkshire grit. Is that right? It's just a sanding or abrasive paste. It's gonna polish it up real nice. We don't need a lot. Just put a little dab on it. A little dab will do you. I'm gonna hit that. Ooh, that was way too big a dab. That's okay. Put that back and forth and wipe it off. All right. Then stop that. Well, there you have it, guys. We got our wooden ring all finished up. This one, not quite perfect, so I probably will, well, I'm definitely going to redo this one. This one was just kind of a tester for us because Jamie wants a darker wood in her ring, so we're not actually going to use this one. I have another blank for her that we're going to use for the real one, but definitely learned a lot from, you know, showing you guys about this one, because doing it this thin is a whole heck of a lot more difficult than doing these wider ones. So hope you guys learned something. Hope you had fun. Appreciate you for stopping by.